cannot close out this segment without bringing up one of my favorite composers, and that's Erich Korngold.
Oh, what
Please
a special.
talk to me about that man.
Well, you know, we get into who's the greatest and who's the best, and those are fun discussions because they prompt discussion. I mean, the ideas flow. They're not really meaningful. But for me, I like to think of Korngold being the best film composer ever.
Really?
And not the greatest, because he did about a dozen films. And how can you compare that to Max Steiner doing 300 films, or John Williams and what he's done? But he was such a great composer. And he was in Europe. He was regarded universally as one of the great composers in the world. And his name with Arnold Schoenberg was listed as the two great composers of the time. But Korngold from Vienna, the Nazis were going to come in there, and he needed to get his family out. Hollywood was so anxious to have a prestigious composer here that they offered him all kinds of money to help them score. So he scored Robin Hood. And as they said, Robin Hood not only saved Sherwood Forest, he saved my family.
Ah, nice.
And he got his family over here to safety, and he just wrote some brilliant scores. The irony is that his reputation sank quick, because the modernist world thought that film music is popular music, and if he's suddenly a popular composer, he can't be a good composer. So his reputation was totally, he never really got to reconstruct it. It must have been very frustrating.
Did he ever go back to doing just classical type music?
He wrote some few classical music, and he fused a few of his cello concerto, violin concerto. He got in and out of some film scores. Beautiful pieces. When I listen to his music, I just think we've got to get back into listening to those pieces again. We're done with the modernist era. Let's go back and look at this with reasonable ears. He's a fabulous composer.
May we hear a clip of his?
We sure can. This is from Robin Hood.
Good.
Adventures of Robin Hood. And it's
Errol Flynn, right?
Errol Flynn, what a great actor he is, and he's so perfect for this role because he's so arrogant, you know? And that's perfectly what you need. And the music reflects that. If you, we don't have the excerpt of the opening, but it's such an arrogant-sounding opening. There's what we call the Merry Men March, and it represents his band, and it's heard all the way through the film. Each time we hear it, it's different colors, different kind of harmonizations, different rhythmic effects to it. So he's constantly varying what's going on. And this is one of my favorite scenes of music. This is the ending where Richard the Lionhearted has landed. He survived an assassination attempt, and now he's going to go in the castle to retrieve his kingship. But they have to sneak in, so they're dressed in robes. They're sneaking in. Just as they're entering, you're going to hear, we've talked about source music and underscoring. You're going to hear both at the same time. So the source music is the trumpet fanfares announcing, hey, we're going to have this ceremony in which John is going to become king. And the scoring is playing the March to the Men. And it may be called the Merry Men, but at this point the march is so loud and forceful, it's like we may be wearing tights, but we've got swords. It's very energetic and almost nasty-like as they file in. So the interesting part is that these two sounds don't actually fit together. The trumpets are in a different key. So there's a clash that's produced between the fanfare and the scoring. And this is so effective because we're about to have a clash between these two factions in a big battle scene.
Oh, I've got to hear this.
Why don't we listen to it?
So I'm pretty familiar with that film, and I know the music fairly well. I had never listened to that particular sound cue just like that, I'm hearing so much more in it now. Now, you said the horns are in a different key, or is it?
It was the trumpets.
The trumpets, yeah.
And the trumpets were doing the fanfare.
Right, at the beginning of that clip.
Uh-huh.
But they're dissonant, but they don't. But they sound like they fit. How did he
Well,
do
rhythmically they fit, and they're close in the keys. There's just a couple pitches that are clashing, and so there's just an uneasy feeling that's created by this tension.
Because it's about foreshadowing what's about to
Yeah.
happen.
And this is what's so great. I mean, of course, this film, and it's hard because we're so used to color, but this is one of the first three-part Technicolor films to come out. So the audiences were just going, wow, the color is beautiful in this film. And to have Korngold write such a colorful score, which had bells, harps, all kinds of instruments that you wouldn't normally find in this film orchestra, and he constantly changes the colors so that even the course of a melody, you'll hear its color changing as it's being played to you. Brilliant stuff that influenced composers like John Williams.
Yes, absolutely. You can hear it.
Yeah.
You can. I hate to close out this segment. This is just my favorite era of Hollywood music. Tell us who we're not going to get to hear about in this segment.
I mean, they're just the grandfathers of the sound era. Would also include Herbert Stoddart, who was very important in the 30s, and of course he's best known for Wizard of Oz. Great score for that. We have Franz Waxman, who wrote some terrific scores all the way through the 50s and beyond. And Alfred Newman, he took over the 20th Century Studios, and he's still remembered today because of his fanfare.
That was his?
Yeah, he wrote that. Now, the interesting part, if you don't mind me just going on a little bit here, he wrote the opening thing, and if you watch old films, you know sometimes they seem short. That's not the full fanfare. Well, he added the other part, the second part of the fanfare, when they went into CinemaScope. And so you'd have the 20th Century logo, and then all of a sudden they need a little extra time to go CinemaScope underneath. And what's interesting in musically is that with CinemaScope, there was the widescreen, which means they added more speakers. And for the first time, these composers had stereo available to them. So that fanfare, dum-da-dum, everybody plays together. Then suddenly they break into two parts. Da-da-da-dum, bum-ba-bum, da-da-da-bum, bum-ba-bum. Then they join da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So he's showing off the stereo system at the same time.
That's why.
Yeah, fascinating. And just to also remind you, he had his family are very talented. Thomas Newman, David Newman, and a nephew named Randy.
Of course.
All of
Short
those
people.
A great musical family.
Well, on that note, reluctantly, I have to end this segment. We are talking with Dr. Roger Hickman and his wonderful book, Real Music, Exploring 100 Years of Film Music. I'm Lisa Bowman. The next segment, we move to the 60s and the 70s. Come right back.